My friend, you had horses, and deed of arms, and free fields. But she, being born in the body of a maid, had a spirit and courage at least the match of yours. Yet she was doomed to wait upon an old man, whom she loved as a father, and watched him fall into a mean, dishonored dotage. And her part seemed to her more ignoble than the staff that he leaned on.
Hey there, gang. I'm Danny J.
This is Joel N. Welcome back to Keep on Tolkien.
Yeah. Episode 45.
And today we are going to be doing actually our second character profile on a female character. Breaking records. Not that there were terribly many female characters in Tolkien to begin with, but if you want to hear more about that, go listen to our Women in Tolkien episode.
Yeah. We discussed it at length in a 2-part episode.
But today we are going to be talking about Éowyn,
Shieldmaiden of Rohan.
So let's first just start briefly and touch on who Éowyn was, just a little refresher. So she's the niece and the goddaughter of King Theoden of Rohan.
She's sister to Éomer, the chief marshal of the Riddermark.
She was also known for her fierce bravery, skill with the sword, and her ability to lead.
For a second here, see, this, I thought it said her ability to read. I was like, and then I realized that I can't read. It says lead. Yeah, she was prized for her ability to read.
So let's jump into a few of her names and titles. So she's known as the Shieldmaiden of Rohan, the Lady of the Shield Arm, White Lady of Rohan,
the Lady of Ithilien, the Lady of Emyn Arnon, and of course, Dernhelm.
Her alter ego. But we'll get into a little more of Dernhelm a little bit later.
Yeah.
But let's start with her origins. So Éowyn, she was born in the Third Age, 2995, in Rohan, and she was the second child of Éomen and Theodwyn.
Her her mother Theodwyn was sister to King Theoden, and that would make Éowyn niece to the king.
Yeah, and like we mentioned earlier, King Theoden was also Éowyn's godfather.
The godfather.
Yeah, it turns out that her mother Theodwyn and Theoden, they were, of their siblings, those two were particularly close.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very close family, these guys.
So Éowyn's father, Éomen, he was the chief marshal of the Mark of Rohan. That is under King Theoden, of course. And then she also has an older brother, Éomer.
In TA 3002, Éowyn's father Éomen dies. Éomen was known for being reckless and often riding against the enemy with few men about him.
Yeah, so in 3002, he was recklessly pursuing a band of orcs towards the Emyn Muil, and he gets himself killed.
Gets iced. And shortly after that, their mother, Theodwyn, she dies of grief, as is happens to Tolkien characters.
Yeah, that happens a few times in Tolkien.
Yeah. It happens in real life, though, too, with, like, super old people.
It does. Older folks, they do tend to pass from grief.
Yeah.
It is something that actually happens.
Yeah.
So by the time both of their parents died, Éowyn and Éomer, they were 7 years old and 11 years old, respectively. So they were pretty young. So this is pretty tragic for them.
And the orphan children, they were taken by their uncle, and they were to grow up in his house as children of the royal house of Edaris.
King Theoden's a great guy. But that's about as much information as they give on the early life of Éowyn. Next, we get to hear about her is more towards the War of the Ring.
Yeah. You mean to tell me there's some serious gaps in a female character's background story?
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
So, since we're going to be talking about the War of the Ring, let's take a second to talk about King Theoden, since all the events that happen in Rohan at the time kind of revolve around Theoden and such.
The Theoden regime, yeah.
Yeah. So, by the time of the War of the Ring, King Theoden had actually already been king of Rohan for about 40 years, and he was becoming pretty old and tired.
tired as shit. And in 3014, his health began to fail quite a bit. This might have been due to natural causes, him being 66 and not Dunedain.
True.
Yeah, and it may have been, but it may have been induced by the subtle poisons administered by local asshole Grima Wormtongue.
Yeah, I don't think it's explicitly said either way, but it's pretty well implied that it was the influence of Grima that eventually is what made things worse. Yeah, as the War of the Ring approached, Theoden was increasingly misled by his chief advisor, Grima. And in the last years before the war started, Theoden pretty much let his rule completely slip out of his hands, and Grima became one of the main powers in Rohan.
So do you think that so obviously you can draw the conclusion that he's like a Rasputin type character, right?
Yeah. You definitely get that feel.
Do you know if Tolkien ever said anything about him being a Rasputin Indian character?
That's a good thing to look. I haven't heard anything about that.
I just thought of that right now.
I could see there being like inspirations from.
Yeah, because I also heard that Rasputin used to poison one of the children of the Tsar.
Oh, really?
And then heal them and make himself look cool.
Oh,
yeah,
tricksy.
But anyway, guys, let's go back to Rohan. So Rohan, at the time of the Grima regime, is troubled again by orcs and Dunlendings, who operated from orders of Saruman of Isengard.
Yeah, so now that Grima's the one in power, he's more or less making it so these things can happen.
Turning a blind eye to Saruman taking over.
Exactly. Yeah. And like there were obviously some in Rohan who weren't totally cool with it. For example, Éowyn's brother was really not... Éomer was not cool with it. So he tried to fight the orcs off, but that ultimately ended up getting him in trouble too. So there was a lot of drama around that. But so around this time... This is in the Lord of the Rings story, where we, the audience, are first introduced to Éowyn, and that's in the golden halls of Menaceld in Edoras.
By this time, Éowyn had grown to be tall, slim, and pale, with long golden hair, gray eyes, and a grace and pride that came from her mother.
We've got a quick excerpt about her appearance.
Grave and thoughtful was her glance, as she looked at the king with a cool pity in her eyes. Very fair was her face, and her long hair was like a river of gold. Slender and tall she was in her white robe girt with silver, but strong she seemed and stern as steel, a daughter of kings.
Yeah, so she definitely had an air about her. And it was said in temperament that Éowyn was idealistic, spirited, brave, and high-minded. And Tolkien writes separately that around this time is also when Éowyn really longed to win renown in battle, especially since she was royal. But being female, her duties were reckoned to be at Edaras. So naturally, she wasn't involved in any of fighting.
Right. Yeah, the Rohirrim are very... battle is highly honored. It's, they're one of those types of people.
Oh, yeah.
Where, being killed in battle is about the best way to go.
Mm-hmm.
At this time, Éowyn had also taken up caring for her uncle Theoden after his health had begun to decline.
Yeah, and this is when she became very lonely, basically having sacrificed her own happiness for years now to care for her sick uncle and to meet the responsibilities of a proper Shieldmaiden, if you were, basically the expectations of her.
I'm sure none of the female listeners out there can identify with that at all. Right?
Oh, I'm sure.
Sacrificing your own happiness to take care of other people.
Yeah, and this next point too, she was also constantly having to deal with harassment from Grima Wormtongue, who lusted for her all the time.
Oh, I'm sure they never have to deal with that.
I'm sure no one has to deal with that.
No. Yeah, dealing with harassment from unrequited love? Yeah, never.
That never happens.
Never.
Yeah, so Éowyn is in a pretty bad place at this point, I guess you could say. It's pretty sad. I mean, she was orphaned from her parents when she was really young, and now her uncle, who she loves as a father, is in decline, and his kingdom is falling to shit, and she's just sitting here wasting away her life trying to take care of him.
Patriarchy got her down, man.
Yeah, it's a pretty depressing time to be Éowyn, but things are about to change.
Yes, they are. And on March 2nd, Third Age 3019, Gandalf arrives in Edoras with the three hunters, Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas.
They had come to Edoras at Gandalf's bidding to help free King Theoden from the influence of Grima Wormtongue and to ultimately urge King Theoden to take some action against Isengard. Because Gandalf knew if they didn't take action against Isengard, there was no way that any of them were going to stand against Mordor when Mordor came on assault. So he's like, we've got to deal with this first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a Rohan first agenda, like they used to do. Europe first, World War II.
This is also when Éowyn meets Aragorn for the first time.
Oh.
And she starts to kind of fall for him.
Yeah. Who wouldn't, though?
Right,
what
exactly.
A guy.
I mean, he is like the guy. I mean, come on. Let me read you this excerpt about Aragorn. Thus Aragorn, for the first time in the full light of day, beheld Éowyn, lady of Rohan, and thought her fair, fair and cold, like a morning of pale spring that is not yet come to womanhood. And she was now suddenly aware of him, tall heir of kings, wise with many winters, grey-cloaked, hiding a power that yet she felt. For a moment still as stone she stood, then turning swiftly she was gone. Ooh, a little bit of tension right off the bat.
Yeah. No, what's really funny is like if you read this, what you just read,
Mm-hmm.
that's basically exactly how they introduce her in the movie.
Yeah,
Like that almost describes the shot that they do when they introduce her in the movie.
yeah, it's really cool when you remember back to like the film when you're reading over this and you're like, oh yeah, they've actually pulled this right from the text.
Right
like
from
some
the
of these
text,
shots and some of these lines they did actually.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why the fucking movies were
The movies are
so
good.
great.
Yeah.
But
it seems like unlike the Hobbit trilogy, they had people that read the books writing on it.
yeah, and like they were trying to actually like use the story that was in the books.
Right. Strange.
Yeah, it seems like strange.
Strange. So after the revival of Theoden, the king agrees to join the oncoming war and leads his forces to Helm's Deep to prepare. He's like, yeah, enough of this shit. We've been silent for too long. Here we go.
Here we go. So since Theoden planned to ride to battle himself, he knew that he needed someone to sort of take his place in Edoras while they were gone. So he asked his door warden, Hama, to suggest a leader for the people in his absence. And Hama recommends Éowyn because though she's a woman, she was, quote, fearless and all love her, end quote. She's a pretty popular character, and she's, like we mentioned at the beginning, she's known for being able to lead.
Mm-hmm. Éowyn reluctantly obeyed the king's orders to stay behind, and was bitter when the men left for Battle of the Hornburg. And here's a little excerpt about that. All your words are but to say you are a woman, and your part is in the house. But when the men have died in battle and honor, you leave to be burned in the house, for the men will need it no more. But I am of the house of Eol, and not a serving woman. I can ride and wield blade, and I do not fear either pain or death.
What do you fear, lady?
A cage, to stay behind bars until use and old age accept them, and all chance of doing great deeds is gone beyond recall or desire.
Yeah, so she obviously had some real strong aspirations to, like we mentioned earlier, win honor in battle and defend her homeland.
Yeah, and I love that she's not even like fearing the role of doing the house stuff. She's more fearing the fact that she'll get used to it, and that'll be all she's willing to do / can do anymore.
Yeah, a cage to stay behind bars until use and old age accept them.
Yeah.
So, but like we mentioned, she does begrudgingly agree to stay behind, and she does a great job.
Yeah, totally ship shape.
Yeah,
Edoras.
so when the war party returns victorious to Edoras, Éowyn had kept everything in perfect condition for their return. I mean, like, perfect condition. She did a fantastic job.
Shit's even nicer. Like, she just, like...
Things are better when they get back.
I replaced all the light bulbs with compact fluorescent, and I think you'll notice that, our electricity bill will be a lot shorter. Yeah.
Made some improvements.
Yeah, made some improvements.
And so it was around this time, after the war party got back, that she also confessed her growing feelings for Aragorn. But as we know, Aragorn reluctantly refuses her.
Right.
But it's not necessarily that he didn't care for her.
No, yeah, he just liked her as a friend, you know.
Well, they make it seem as though there was some love there too, but it's just the relationship is complicated because Aragorn does care for her to an extent.
Yeah.
But I mean, it becomes evident to Éowyn that he's obviously not going to return the love she's looking for because he's betrothed to Arwen.
Yeah, and they've been dating for 40 years at this point.
Mm-hmm. So, like, the relationship between Aragorn and Éowyn, it's interesting because, like, there's that weird tension there because she obviously really, really likes him.
Really digs him.
And he likes her, too. to an extent, but he's basically engaged.
Yeah, he's taken.
But they don't really let that affect things that much. Like, they still interact with each other all the time.
No, yeah, they don't let it get weird.
It's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah. Well, because ultimately they're doing shit. Like, there's
there's the War of the Ages going on right now. So I guess there's plenty of distractions.
More important stuff to deal with.
And it was also at this time, after the war party gets back, that Éowyn is also introduced to a little man known as Meriadoc Brandybuck.
Yeah.
Who had returned with the war party from Isengard. And they make friends. New friends.
Yeah. And so really there's no rest for the wicked, because
no rest for the wicked.
Yeah, as soon as they get back, Denethor too, of who, as we know, is the Steward of Gondor at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He urgently calls for Theoden's aid against Mordor.
Yeah, Mordor's coming now.
Éowyn again begged to be allowed to ride a battle, but again she was refused.
Theoden did allow her to join the company this time as far as the Harrowdale on their way down to Minas Tirith. And the Harrowdale is basically where Theoden goes to muster his forces.
Right, yeah, it's like a big, isn't it like a valley, right? And they all
it's a deep valley and a cleft in the White Mountains, so they're kind of shielded and guarded from all the crazy shit that's going on.
Shit, yeah.
And while in the Harrowdale, Éowyn, she's very bitter because she's come this far and she's not going to be allowed to continue on in Minas Tirith. So in bitterness, she disguises herself as a man so that she can secretly ride with the war party along to the battle.
Yeah.
But in the books, when we're going through this, we don't know that she does this. We get to the point where she's in the Harrowdale and we see how frustrated she is, and that's like the last we see of her.
Right.
And Tolkien doesn't hint at all that she does any of this.
No, yeah. But in the film, they I think it's I don't like that they took Dernhelm out, but at the same time, I understand that they wanted to be like, this is a female, and we know, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
They didn't want to be like, yo, let's cast Miranda Otto and then pretend she's a dude for half of the movie,
for an hour or so.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, but I like the Dernhelm thing.
Yeah, so also for the sake of telling the story, we're also going to obviously say here that this is Éowyn, but she takes on the Dernhelm thing.
Yeah, she's Dernhelm.
And so on March 10th, TA 3019, this is also known as the Dawnless Day. This is the morning when Theoden's army finally sets out for Minas Tirith. And this is also when Theoden forbids Merry from joining them at the battle because Merry wasn't big enough to ride the big mighty horses of the Rohirrim. He couldn't ride them that far that fast.
Right. I just think it's funny how societies are you're not good enough to fight for us. Mm-hmm. I don't get it. They're gonna kill people for you. What's the difference?
Right.
It's
yeah.
stupid.
It was basically he couldn't ride his own horse, and none of the other horses could bear the extra weight. So Theoden was like, "You're staying behind.
You're behind, man." And Merry was understandably distraught about this. And until a mysterious young rider, Dernhelm, our guy, offered to bear him on his horse.
The best of guys, Dernhelm. Yeah, like we mentioned, no one knew at this point that it was Éowyn. Even the audience in the books at this point, they don't know that it's Éowyn in disguise. But Dernhelm takes Merry along because ultimately, she knows that Merry wanted to follow his friends into battle and was refused, just like she was.
Like her, yeah.
And because Éowyn ultimately weighs less than a man of similar height, she knew that her horse, Windfulla, could ultimately bear them both and they wouldn't be weighed down.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have that problem.
So why not?
So ultimately she takes Merry along to the Battle of Pelennor Fields.
The shittiest place ever to be taken along to.
Yeah, this isn't a good place to be.
But when it came down to it, push came to shove at the Battle of Pelennor Fields, Éowyn, disguised as Dernhelm, proved herself as fierce and fearless as any man of the Rohirrim.
And the Rohirrim are known for being motherfuckers.
Being valiant, yeah.
in war. They are a battle race. They talk about during Pelennor Fields how they sing because
they sang as they slew.
They sang as they slew because the joy of battle was upon them.
Yeah.
This is what they do, and she was very good at it.
Yes, she was.
And during the battle, she actually made sure to follow along with Theoden's personal escort. She wanted to be close by.
And during battle, King Theoden was directly confronted by a winged, Witch King of Angmar.
One of the winged Nazgul. This is a horrifying scene.
Yeah, and the king's escort, they pretty much hightail it out of there. They're all scared.
Yeah, they scatter because of the terror of the wraiths thing.
Yeah,
the king of the wraiths, I can only imagine.
Yeah, but Dernhelm and Mary are the only ones that don't go chicken shit on this.
Yeah, they're both Dernhelm and Mary. One of the things we hadn't mentioned previously is Mary has a very strong bond with King Theoden, so he also really loves Theoden almost as much as Éowyn.
So it's all about love for people.
Yeah, they love their king, so they did not flee when the terror was in front of them. But the king's horse, on the other hand, was completely spooked by the crazy winged fell beast that the Witch King was riding. So the king's horse rears up and falls over and crushes Theoden underneath him.
And as Theoden lay mortally wounded, Dernhelm rushed to his side and challenged the Witch King. One-on-one, motherfucker!
Which is pretty crazy, because, even elves were getting slaughtered by the Witch King back in, the Second Age and shit.
Nobody can stand up to this motherfucker.
This is crazy. Yeah, so the Witch King ultimately just laughs and boasts about he can't be defeated by any man and this and that, ultimately referring to Glorfindel's prophecy.
Yeah, at the fall of the Northern Kingdom.
Yeah, at the fall of the Northern Kingdom, Glorfindel said, by no living, or...
not by the hand of man shall he fall?
Not by the hand of man shall he fall, yeah. And then the Witch King rephrases it as no living man can kill me, but that's sort of a mistranslation of Glorfindel's prophecy. But anyway, so in response to the Witch King's taunting, this is when Dernhelm removes his helmet, revealing for the first time that Dernhelm is actually Lady Éowyn, Shieldmaiden of Rohan. What the fuck?
Yeah.
When you come across this scene for the first time in the book, they build it up so perfectly.
It is amazing.
It's a crazy drop, man.
Yeah.
They really don't hint much at all. Well, there's a little bit of hinting.
Yeah,
when she's like, "You don't recognize me?" Oh,
yeah. When Mary's like, "I don't know you," and she's like, "Oh, do you not?"
But that's about as much as you get.
Yeah.
But he just. Oh, God, he played that out so well.
Yeah, it's honestly, this is one of the best parts in all of the Lord of the Rings, in my opinion, when you find out that this is Lady Éowyn. Let's get to this fucking excerpt, right?
Yeah, so this scene is so badass. We've quoted it before, but this time it's gonna be a pretty long excerpt just because it's great. There's no better way to sum it up.
Right.
So we hope you enjoy this scene. Come not between the Nazgul and his prey, or he will not slay thee in thy turn. He will bear thee away to the houses of lamentation, beyond all darkness, where thy flesh shall be devoured, and thy shriveled mind be left naked to the lidless eye. A sword rang as it was drawn. Do what you will, but I will hinder it if I may. Hinder me, thou fool. No living man may hinder me. Then Mary heard of all sounds in that hour the strangest. It seemed that Dernhelm laughed, and the clear voice was like the ring of steel. But no living man am I. You are looking upon a woman. Éowyn am I, Éowyn's daughter. You stand between me and my lord and kin. Be gone if you be not deathless, for living or dark undead I will smite you if you touch him.
Amazement for a moment conquered Mary's face, and he opened his eyes. And there, some paces in front of him, sat a great beast, and above it loomed the Nazgul lord like a shadow of despair. A little to the left facing them stood whom he had called Dernhelm, but the helm of her secrecy had fallen from her, and her bright hair, released from its bonds, gleamed with pale gold upon her shoulders. Her eyes, grey as the sea, were hard and fell, and yet tears gleamed in them.
It's a crazy scene.
Yeah, fucking A, man. I love that, how he kind of uses her badassery, but she's like you can see her eyes are stern and fell, but they also have tears in them. There's a vulnerability there.
Yeah. This is fucking horrifying.
Yeah, dude.
There's no way any man would ever really survive this, but she's gonna try anyway.
Yeah, she knows.
But at this point, it mentions, too, that the Witch King kind of falters because he realizes that weird little loophole in the prophecy.
Yeah, he's like, oh, shit.
But at the same time, he's fucking furious that somebody would challenge him. So all at once, he's just super furious and he attacks Éowyn.
I never realized that. What part of the reason he probably gets angry is because he just realized the loophole. Oh, shit.
Oh, what?
Oh, they should have worded that better.
Well... God damn it, Glorfindel.
Glorfindel just made this prophecy like tee-hee, just knowing what was going to happen.
I mean, shit, Glorfindel has already been reincarnated. He probably knows some shit. He knows some shit.
This was a joke 3,000 years in the making.
One of the best setups of all time. Good job, Glorfindel.
But furious at this, the Witch King attacks Éowyn. And he initially attacks her with his steed, the big fucking winged bat. Nasty creature. But Éowyn quickly slew it with her sword.
Yeah, she makes quick work of that thing. She's literally, I think she does literally cut its head off, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does, yes, come down and cut its head off. Yeah, well, we were talking about that earlier, because I had seen the films before I'd read the books, and like certain things I would be like, there's no way that's in the book.
Right.
And like when she just slices its fucking head off.
And you're like, oh,
no, that's in the book. Yeah, she slices its goddamn head off. Yeah.
Right away. Yeah, like we mentioned earlier, she in combat, she's a motherfucker, just like any of the Rohirrim, man. Yeah. They're known for that shit. So this is when Éowyn, after she slays the Witch King's mount, now she goes toe-to-toe in hand-to-hand combat with the Witch King of Angmar. Break out the guitars, dude.
This is almost as badass as Fingolfin v. Morgoth. Like, if you think about it.
This is another one of those matchups where it's like, oh man, this is fucking crazy.
Yeah, this is crazy.
And their fight is not terribly long, but it is very bitter. And the Witch King is fighting with a big old mace.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy weapon. Like, no one's used a weapon like that so far in this story.
But the Witch King shatters her shield and breaks her shield arm with the mace. And this seems like it could be the end for Lady Éowyn.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can only imagine how fucked up her arm is.
But in a final desperate move, Meriadoc Brandybuck of the Shire, stabs the Witch King behind the knee with one of the barrel blades.
Got an excerpt about this scene here. Her shield was shivered in many pieces, and her arm was broken. She stumbled to her knees. He bent over her like a cloud, and his eyes glittered. He raised his mace to kill. But suddenly he too stumbled forward with a cry of bitter pain, and his stroke went wide, driving into the ground. Mary's sword had stabbed him from behind, shearing through the black mantle and passing up beneath the hauberk, had pierced the sinew behind his mighty knee.
Getting stabbed in the sinew by fucking... Oh, that would hurt.
That sounds painful.
Yeah. I love that word, yeah. Sinew.
Yeah, I had to read that over a few times to pronounce those.
Yeah, it's gross. Yeah, what a gross thing. We all have it inside of us, but it's nasty.
So ultimately, this move does two significant things. So first, it just so happens that barrow blade that Mary happens to be using
just happens to.
Yeah, this is a callback all the way to the beginning of the Fellowship when they get those barrow blades at the edge of the Shire. So that turns out that those barrow blades are one of the only weapons that can do damage to the Witch King because of the history of that barrow blade in the North Kingdom. Because in the North Kingdom, they fought the Witch King in the past.
Some old Númenórean tricks.
So they actually had weapons back then to deal with this kind of shit, and it just happens that that's the blade Mary's carrying. So when he stabs the Witch King with the barrow blade, it actually eliminates the Witch King's defense magic, and it wounds him.
And secondly, the unexpected injury distracts the Witch King long enough for Éowyn to get up and deal one last fucking blow.
One final dramatic attempt to take him down. And we have an excerpt about this scene as well.
Then, tottering, struggling up, with her last strength, she drove her sword between the crown and mantle as the great shoulders bowed before her. The sword broke, sparkling into many shards. The crown rolled away with a clang. Éowyn fell forward upon her fallen foe, but lo, the mantle and hauberk were empty. Shapeless they now lay on the ground, torn and tumbled, and a cry went up into the shuddering air, and faded to a shrill wailing, passing with the wind. A voice bodiless, and a thing that died, and was swallowed up, and was never heard again in that age of the world.
And so he ended.
And so endeth the Witch King of Angmar.
And they thought it just.
And they thought it was just. We were just, this is a little inside joke from our Silmarillion read-along group where we just read the part where they chucked Meglin's dad, Éowyn, off the precipice of Gondolin.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and many thought it was like, and so he ended. And many thought it was just.
Just, yeah, I don't know. Just the very matter-of-factness of that sentence just really tickled us. So it's been kind of a running joke. And so he ended.
And so he
and
ended.
they thought it was just.
And many thought it was just. But soon, let's get back to it.
Yeah, so so she did it.
She did it, guys.
The Witch King is gone. This is the end. The prophecy of Glorfindel has finally come true.
Yeah.
But not without a price.
No. And Éowyn soon passed out from the pain she was experienced, and they believed her to be dead.
Yeah, and seeing her lying there dead on the battlefield caused her brother Éomer to go temporarily mad, and he charged at the enemy in a crazy fury, bloodlust, and he just went nuts and started slaying.
Yeah. Dude, in the movie, they don't have him do that, but they do have him, like, lose his shit.
Yeah, they do have that part where he breaks down and loses his shit. And I imagine he did the fellow they got to play Éomer did a great job in that scene. Like, when he's, like, screaming and crying and holding
and it's
her.
in, like, half motion. It's like, oh, my God, it's
that's powerful.
Yeah, that was when the tears start to flow in The Return of the King.
Oh, yeah. Gets heavy. But during the battle, she was also found by Prince Imrahil, who noticed that she was still alive. And Prince Imrahil ordered her to be taken to the Houses of the Healing right away.
Right away.
Statum. And so that is how Lady Éowyn ends up leaving the Battle of Pelennor Fields. The battle is not quite over yet, but she is taken off to the Houses of Healing.
And there she was healed by who else but sexy man Aragorn.
Aragorn, tall, dark, and handsome. Yeah, by the healing of the King Aragorn, and brought back to consciousness also by the calls of her distraught brother. Éowyn, who was near death when she came in, she finally comes around. We've got a excerpt about this scene too. "Awake, Éowyn, Lady of Rohan," said Aragorn again, and he took her right hand in his, and felt warm with life returning. "Awake, the shadow is gone, and all darkness is washed clean." Then he laid her hand in Éomer's and stepped away. "Call her," he said, and he passed silently from the chamber. "Éowyn, Éowyn," cried Éomer amid his tears. But she opened her eyes and said, "Éomer, what joy is this? For they said that you were slain." "Nay, but that was only the dark voices in my dream. How long have I been dreaming?" "Not long, my sister," said Éomer, "but think no more of it."
It's a sweet moment.
It is a sweet moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the relationship between the brother and sister.
Yeah.
It's very tender and very strong too. Yeah,
I love how Aragorn just like goes around like healing. Just like this is what he does. He's just like, this person's sad. I love how he like literally, remember in the Faramir episode we talked about, so he literally like calls him back.
Yeah.
And he's like, "My lord, I heard you calling." Like,
a similar thing.
Yeah.
That's something that he has to do to people who are suffering from the Black Breath, I think.
Yes, the Black Breath, that nasty disease.
Nasty. So after some time in the Houses of the Healing, the army of the West decides they're going to go march on the Black Gate to challenge Sauron. But once again, Éowyn remains behind because she's still in the Houses of the Healing recovering.
Yeah. It's like, all right, we understand now that leaving you behind was a mistake. But you're actually pretty hurt this time. You should stay here.
Yeah, she did still want to go once again.
Yeah.
But for the third time, she had to stay behind because, she was literally still recovering from a shattered arm and shit.
And this is how she meets the Faramir. She's bitching to the lady that runs the Houses of Healing, and she's like, "Yo, I want to get out of here. Like, what can I do?" And they're like, "Go talk to Faramir. He's in the next room. He's the steward of the city."
Yeah, and she's like, "Steward," and he's like, "What can I do for you?" And she's like, "I want you to order them to let me go."
Yeah, I love Faramir's like, "I'm the steward of this city, and I too am prisoner here."
Yeah, he's like, I too am under care here. Like, we don't really have much of a choice.
Yeah, and they both kind of bond over that too. Like they would both rather be out fighting
with their friends
than be sitting here healing, even though they're both really hurt.
Yeah, they are both. They both got seriously fucked up by Nazgul, nonetheless. But as they spend time together in the Houses of Healing, this is when they start to fall in love. Yeah. But their relationship too is also very complicated.
Yeah.
It's just because Éowyn is a relatively complicated person, and she still has some of those feelings for Aragorn, which was also complicated. So we've got a little bit of an excerpt to just an exchange between Éowyn and Faramir that sort of puts this in perspective.
"Éowyn, do you not love me, or will you not?" "I wish to be loved by another," she answered, "but I desire no man's pity." That I know, he said. You desired to have the love of Lord Aragorn. Éowyn looked at Faramir long and steadily, and Faramir said, Do not scorn pity that is the gift of a gentle heart, Éowyn, but I do not offer you my pity. For you are a lady high and valiant, and have yourself one renowned that shall not be forgotten, and you are a lady beautiful, I deem beyond even the words of the elven tongue to tell, and I love you. Then the heart of Éowyn changed, or at least she understood it, and the winter passed, and the sun shone upon her. I stand in Minas Anor, the tower of the sun, and behold, the shadow is departed, and I will be a shield maiden no longer, nor vie with the great riders, nor take joy only in the songs of slaying. I will be a healer, and love all things that grow and are not barren.
How beautiful.
Yeah, so there's a huge shift in her character at that point.
Yeah, during her time in the Houses of Healing is when she has a huge, a big change of heart, too. Like, she develops a lot.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if this is something that Tolkien went through, maybe, like... that
very well could be.
Yeah, like, just like, I don't dig war. Not that he ever did, but, like, after seeing it, like, I don't dig this anymore. I want to be a healer and create things rather than destroy shit. You know?
That makes a lot of sense because we know that he was, when he was in the war, he did get injured and he was...
Spent a lot of time in the, Houses of Healing.
Yeah, he spent a lot of the time in, like, the first aid camp.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess that makes a lot of sense that he would include a lot of dynamic of people in the healing area. While people are off doing the battle, he has this scene that's back in the Houses of Healing focusing on the dynamic of people who are stuck in the Houses Healing.
Yeah. It's a pretty unique perspective on war, like wanting to be out there fighting with your brothers and sisters, but you're stuck because you're physically injured.
And then not only just being stuck, but going on to like develop from here. Like there's a lot of character development here, and she's just sitting in the Houses of Healing. She's not out at war. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so she has also that major change of heart, and eventually she does completely fall for Faramir.
She kind of allows herself to, I allow myself to
love,
to be loved and to love. Yeah,
it's a really beautiful way to kind of start the conclusion of her life story.
But she did it on her terms, just like everything else. She fell in love on her terms. And the ladies talked about this in the Women in Tolkien episode too.
Yeah, this is one of the things we talked about. It was really cool how the love story with Éowyn was sort of an afterthought. Like it wasn't part of her main storyline. This is tacked on at the end.
No, yeah. And it was kind of, I think, because those two characters, Faramir and Éowyn, have a lot in common, which we talked about in the Faramir episode. Mm-hmm. They're both beloved by their people, but overlooked by their families. Mm-hmm. And I think, like, it was, like you said, an afterthought of, like, let's have these two characters find happiness within each other. Mm-hmm. Not, like, a huge arc for really either one of those characters.
Yeah, and it's not like either of their story arcs throughout this awesome adventure have been driven by, like, a love triangle either. Yeah. This is something like they've done all that, they've done their hero shit, and now they're finding love.
Yeah, some happiness within each other.
It's wonderful. Yeah, it's beautiful. All right, so let's get into a little bit of what happens with Éowyn after the War of the Ring is ended.
So after the demise of Sauron, Éowyn and Faramir, they get married, and they settle in the hills of Emin Arnon in Ithilien.
And they were both named the ruling prince and princess of Ithilien by the new king of Gondor, that is King Elessar.
Yeah. And Éowyn became known as the Lady of Ithilien.
And together, Éowyn and Faramir had together at least one son that we know of, Elberun. And Elberun goes on to have Éowyn's grandson, who is named Barahir. And Barahir is known for basically writing the tale of Aragorn and Arwen during the Fourth Age. And I think that ultimately, doesn't Pepin get a hold of that and he records it somewhere too?
I am not certain, Joel.
I think that has something to do with a recording that Pepin makes, because I know Pepin starts recording a ton of information.
They all write chapters in the book, which is like Tolkien's like how the appendix got there, essentially, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe that's how that got there.
I think. I'm not sure though.
That's something to look into. So at Éowyn's insistence, Merry is also made a king of the Riddermark, which I think is highly appropriate.
A knight, my friend.
Oh. Sorry, I saw the K. King Merry of the Riddermark.
All hail King Merry of the Riddermark.
Merry is dubbed a knight of the Riddermark. And at Éomer's coronation, when Éomer becomes king of Rohan, Éowyn presents Merry with a parting gift, the Horn of Rohan, which is a pretty significant horn.
Yeah. We actually, it's a small silver horn, and it was taken from the hoard of Skatha, the dragon.
Yeah, it's kind of been in Rohan for a while.
Yeah, it's actually a part of Eothade legend. Like they killed this dragon and took this old dwarven treasure and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this was part of that treasure. So
yeah, so it's a pretty significant horn to just kind of hand off to Merry. It's a very honorable gift.
Yeah, it's part of their history, really.
Mm-hmm. And it is said that Éowyn and Faramir lived happily together until Éowyn's death sometime in the early Fourth Age. And the exact date and means of her death isn't exactly recorded anywhere. But ultimately, she got sort of the happily ever after until you die story.
And she also, Faramir outlived her, too, because he was like little Dunedain or whatever.
Yeah, he had that bit of Dunedain, so I'm sure he
that
lived
sucks.
to be much
He probably
older.
lived quite a while without Éowyn.
Mm-hmm.
That sucks. Oh, well.
Oh, well. But that's ultimately all the information we've got for you guys on Éowyn today.
Yeah. Hope you enjoyed this second long time coming female character profile.
Yeah, I mean, she's also a very significant character in Tolkien's work just in general. She's one of the few, like, very independent female characters we get who's not attached to the story via a, like, relationship or love triangle of some kind. She's just kind of somebody there.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose she does have those feelings for Aragorn, but it's not like an active love triangle thing.
No, it's not like, it's different.
Yeah, her story is driven more or less by her.
Exactly, and her own will, and it's always her doing what she wants to do, or things she's obligated to do, and then she's mad about it, which, we've all been there.
Yeah, I just really love the story of Éowyn. I think it's really fantastic. But if you guys think that we missed anything...
Yeah. If you feel anything was left out, or...
you disagree with
Or
something.
You disagree, like you hate Éowyn or something.
Or you hate us.
Or you hate us, or Or
just let it, just let us... Or you hate Aragorn for some reason? No, I take that back. We will not accept...
No.
We will not accept any hate on Aragorn.
If you call up hating on Aragorn, son...
We will find you.
We'll get all the other Tolkien podcasts to line up against you, too.
You will be blacklisted?
You'll be blacklisted. You'll be kicked off Tolkien Twitter.
Never coming back. But yeah, we hope you enjoyed the episode, guys. Thanks for listening. Make sure you follow us on all the social medias. You can follow us on Twitter at KOT Podcast.
You can also follow me at Danny J, that's JAYKOT. And also follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/official Keep On Tolkien.
Also make sure to join the KOT Talk group that's associated with that page on Facebook. There's just a lot of fun conversation and, sharing pictures and things on there. It's really great. Mm-hmm. We also have, sometimes we do active book club on there. Right now we're doing Silmarillion book club. Yeah.
We're about, about halfway through Silmarillion?
We're a little over. We're about halfway right now, so by the time this comes out, we'll be a little over halfway. But there's still so much left. Come join us.
Come join us. And also follow us on Instagram at Keep On Tolkien Podcast.
Be sure to subscribe to us on SoundCloud or iTunes or really wherever you get your podcasts. And that is usually at saidwebsite.com/keepontolkien.
Yeah.
Make sure you stay up to date on news and our latest episodes. And if you get a chance, be sure to rate us and give us a review.
Yeah, we really enjoy reading reviews.
Yeah, that's one of the things we love.
Yeah. We don't get that many negative reviews.
We did initially.
Yeah, well, people thought we swore too much.
But I think they got used to it after a while.
Yeah, I think they were just like, this is what they do. They're not going to change.
But we want to give a big shout out and a big thank you to all of our patrons.
Yes. Thank you so much. And if you would like to become our newest patron, go to www.patreon.com/KOT podcast. And what Patreon is, it's basically a monthly subscription service. It helps to support us in what we do to bring you the same kind of content at the same quality you're used to. And everything that we do at KOT is 100% DIY, and it comes out of our pockets, doesn't it, Joel?
Yes, it does. So the Patreon really helps us supplement those costs. And like you mentioned, just kind of helps us keep up the quality of the work we do for you.
Yeah.
And subscribing to the Patreon can also unlock some super cool exclusive Patreon content, which is almost always a little risque and not safe for work. So just be aware.
Be aware. Do not look at it at work.
We like to have fun with the Patreon, so go ahead and check that out.
No, seriously, you will be fired if you... But yeah, thanks so much, guys, and thank you to all the patrons as well. You're our heroes. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thanks again for listening, guys. I'm Joel N.
And I'm Danny J.
And make sure to keep on Tolkien.
Aure and Tuluva!